Hi, I'm your host Gisela, and as always, I have Peter here with me.
Hello.
Hello. Today we are going to be talking about nostalgia. So every week it seems like there's something making a comeback, whether it's all these Disney live action remakes or, Hilary Duff's Lizzie McGuire is coming back as she's getting a reboot. Baby Fat, that brand, is coming, it's alive again. And Hollister, Fila, all these brands are cool again. I don't know what's happening.
It's and you're not that old, and you're confused. Imagine where I am. Right? That's why I wore my
true.
Nostalgia T-shirt today. How many of you actually know? Please comment if you guys actually can relate with this. Right? I mean, I think nostalgia has always been powerful. It's just where we are today.
Right.
And now I have the benefit of having a 13-year-old teenager.
Yeah.
That tells me all about all the stuff that's popular in her generation. What are we now? Z? Are we running out of letters? Generation Z, and I'm always like kind of blown away about what's popular again. TV shows like Friends, The Office.
Those were always popular.
Bob Ross.
That's true, yeah.
Fila's for sure. Just bought her a pair of Fila Nike Air Force Ones. Brands were like in the kind of like in being kind of dying or making a comeback. So waiting for like members only jackets to make a comeback.
It's really interesting.
How many of you know what members only is?
So why do you think we're all so collectively drawn to nostalgia right now? I have my own theory, but I want to hear yours.
You want to hear mine first?
Yeah.
Well, I have a lot more to recollect, I suppose.
Okay.
Look, last Super Bowl, right? For example, I was actually a little bit taken away by how much nostalgia was actually being brought back. But it also tells you how powerful nostalgia is, right?
Is.
Like whether or not you talk about politics, for example, political advertising, right? They do that all the time, right? In our last campaign, one party would use Make America Great Again. And what that was a kind of a not so subtle hint that, back when 19, whatever he was referring to, it was kind of obscure. But the idea was that back when, things were always better. We, of course, have really bad memory, right? Depending on what era you're talking about, we actually have a lot more problems back then than we do now. But of course, our memories, the way our human brain works, is that we do retain some of these fondness for the past, and that's what that's why experiences are so important, right? Marketers are tapping into that. We talked about that in our last episode, and those are the memories that actually stay with us for much longer. So. And I think it's wise for brands to tap into it once in a while, but not always. But you can see like some brands are just making a huge comeback.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. There's so much happening in our world today that's kind of bad. Like, the Amazon rainforests are burning, the Arctic is also burning, ice caps are melting. It just feels so much easier to romanticize our past and go back to a time that was better, which is why I think nostalgia works. But going back into the marketing topic, so it's a really fine line between being nostalgic and being outdated. So how do you think marketers can make nostalgia work for them that doesn't make them seem, old-fashioned and out of tune with what, modern day?
Well, I think it goes back to understanding your consumer segments, right? The more homework you do, the better you understand your consumers, the less chances you are to make these type of obvious mistakes, right? To seem outdated. For example, look at music. For example, LPs are making a comeback. Those vinyl records, right? I call it LPs. Those vinyl records are making a comeback. So kids are into it. Ironically, the adults are like, "Why are you going back to that form of records? Like, what's wrong with digital music?" But even genres of music, styles of music always makes a comeback, right? Today, the more I listen to music, it's I hear essence of 80s pop music back in the sounds again. So I do think that it's it's a powerful thing, but I think for it to work, marketers have to make sure they understand their customers first and foremost. But of course, with all brands, I do think there is a shelf life for these older brands to kind of make a comeback. And I think you'll see more of that, right?
Okay.
Brands that perhaps lost its luster for a while, whether it's like, oh gosh, cereal brands maybe, as an example, CPG stuff could easily make a comeback if brands want to resuscitate that.
Right.
Pabst Blue Ribbon beer, for example.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That was a big thing because it was always considered a kind of a low-end beer for the longest time. But if done right, if packaged to, let's say, the hipster crowd and associated with a popular crowd, right, then all of a sudden a brand that was kind of trash for the longest time, all of a sudden has a certain cool association to it because I'm not part of the kind of the Budweiser mass beer crowd, but I'm also not pretentious that I drink like craft beer crowd, right? So like it's something that people haven't quite discovered yet. So that type of like obscurity that the in crowd knows is a powerful psychological lever, right? It's like you and I, we get it because we drink or we wear or we do this that no one has really kept up with. It's just popular enough to make it still seem very cool, right? And I think that's where nostalgia comes into play because it's not a new brand, because new brand takes time to build. They're still bringing back older brand that has some cachet. So that obscurity, actually, the irony there is that element makes it cool again.
That's actually the beer that I was serving at my party a few weeks ago. So
why? Why did you choose that beer?
I guess I personally didn't really have. I wasn't the one who picked it, but then my roommates who went to pick it, that's what they picked out. That's what they bought.
Right? That's why you were laughing.
That's why I'm laughing. Yeah, I had never had it before.
For if you drink beer, you realize that beer is very, very average.
It is very average. Yeah, right? It has a cool bottle though. I think. It's very
it's very retro.
Kind of retro, yeah
for sure.
Exactly.
Right.
So I also think that nostalgia also works when marketers combine nostalgia with like modern day relevance or technology, for example. So like Pokemon Go, combining the technology part of it, the AR, and it's such an old school game that really worked. Yeah,
I think nostalgia is going to work as long as marketing is out there, and sequels are kind of nostalgia as well, right? The fact that Star Wars is still, coming out with the franchise. I mean, that's Star Wars been around since the 1970s, right? So generations of generations have absorbed Star Wars, made it part of their culture, and then and Star Wars now has been remade for a next generation of audience. So like you said, brands can actually tweak a brand and be able to kind of brush off kind of the rust and shine the luster back again on old brands. Like you said, give it a new digital twist. Or even associated with certain celebrities, people like that have influence, and that can make a brand popular again.
For sure. But I also think that there are certain brands that should not touch nostalgia. Or also feel inauthentic. Like, for example, really new brands that don't have that history. If they suddenly try to dive into that, it doesn't feel authentic.
It goes back to, again, it's like, don't try too hard, right? Marketers, listen in, right? Don't try too hard to be different for the sake of being different. It still goes back to, look, know who you are, know your core purpose, know your core self as a brand. What do you stand for? What are the belief systems that you have? And does nostalgia fit into that storyline? Now, if it does, great. If you have for example, if you have a product, a CPG product, or any product that maybe caters to an older audience, 40s, 50s, 60 plus, then I think nostalgia can have a nice play here, while still not dating yourself too old. You can contemporize something that has history, right? And I think that's that's the formula that makes it work.
Kind of an obscure question, but you mentioned the 50, 60 plus. I think, based on my own observations, all these things that feel like they're making a comeback seem to be from the 90s, 2000s based. It feels like brands and companies are targeting
I'm an expert on those.
millennials and Gen Zs instead of other generations. Do you think that's actually the case, or am I just filtering because I am a Gen Zer?
You should answer it yourself. Because, for me, it's just kind of weird seeing it become popular again. Because I think for me, it's like seeing Friends make a comeback. You said it's always been there, but after I finished watching, I never thought about rewatching it again. I think there's some magic to nostalgia, right? Again, it's like young people are looking for something more grounded, right? You can, disagree if you want, but I think in today's digital world where everything is in the moment, things are very fleeting, that's why I think younger generation aren't spending money on material goods per se, right? You're not buying you're not buying cars, you're taking Ubers, you're taking the bus, or you're doing your little electric scooter thing, right? So material things I don't think matters to this upcoming generation as much. I mean, certain small material things do, but like bigger purchases, they rather defer those to experiences that they can have memories with, or seem like they're in the know. That type of status pecking order has always been around in all societies. So I think part of what is neat about nostalgia is that people are always finding something that's been out there for a while and hold on to that. But then again, it's that status pecking order. You and I know about this. We're hip again because we caught on to this brand that's been kind of obscure for a while now, but it's still kind of retro cool. And so I think that phenomenon is actually very powerful. Being able to know something that someone else doesn't, and using a brand that existed before is actually quite interesting.
Definitely.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's it for this week's show. Thank you, Peter.
Great. That's fun.
Yeah, and once again, thank you, Sparko, for sponsoring our podcast. Sparko.com is the link to check out to learn more about their brand marketing services and other creative services. So please click on their link in the description below. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a comment. Tell us about other brands that we didn't get to mention in today's episode that are making a comeback. We really want to know about them. And also do let us know if or whatever topics you want us to talk about next time. And also be sure to click subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And next week, we will be talking about brand cancellation culture and social brand shaming. So that's a big one. So be sure to tune in next time. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.